This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
All right, everybody, guys and girls, welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I'm one of the hosts, Michael Ritter. You can find me on Twitter at Michael5Ritter or on Instagram at MichaelRitter5. Also, the host of the Football Function Podcast, available on all of your podcasting platforms, including the one that you're listening to this podcast on, and also available on Patreon. But speaking of Football Function, really quickly before I introduce John, Detroit Kyle was actually on Football Function this week. Okay. I interviewed him. So a listener of the WWE Podcast, we talked about his fandom of the Detroit Lions and just the overall experience of what it's like being a Detroit Lions fan living in Detroit. It was actually a very good conversation. So if you're a football fan, definitely go check that out. And also tomorrow, Sunday the 17th, I have Casual Wrestling Fan booked to talk about the Patriots.
Dang.
So,
okay, so you're moving in a
some
good direction.
familiar voices
Okay.
are going to be making appearances, a little bit of a crossover. So shout out to Detroit Kyle, shout out to Casual Wrestling Fan for coming over. Also got some other prospects in that are in discussion, trying to book the right time and all that stuff. But
Gotcha.
shameless plugs out of the way. Joining me on today's episode to cover the SmackDown that aired on July 15th, 2022 from Orlando, Florida, in the Amway Center, which was the original home of the Thunderdome. Michael Cole pointed that out, but obviously a pretty big and you can call it a special arena for the WWE because the pandemic was a big time, obviously. But without getting any further into that, John Carrasco at Big Speaker, BIGG_speaker on Twitter if you want to go follow him there. Thank you so much for joining me. How you doing? Coming to you on a Saturday morning. It's unusual for us. We usually record on a Friday night, but it was a late night for us, so we weren't able to do that. We come here on a Saturday morning, and we look to provide a pretty good show for the guys and girls who are going to be listening to the SmackDown review. But how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man, and it's always a good day whenever we're in the studio and everything like that. Yeah, so definitely want to give you a shout out. Thank you for having me here. Like you said, I know it's kind of a weird thing that it's on a Saturday, but we're just rolling through it, trying to get the content out to y'all as fast as we can, I guess you could say. But yeah, man. I wasn't too excited for this episode, but I'm happy to break it down.
Yeah, for sure. It was one of those, you can call it a stinker. You can call it what it is. I'm not like poo-pooing on it. It is what it is. We know that you're not always going to get a banger. It's the same thing in podcast world. Like, we record on one take. We don't do this and sit here and do multiple takes. There's some editing. Every now and then you'll say an F word, and I'll say an F word that has to get kind of clipped out every now and then, but other than that, we're sitting there on first take. So we are going to just, roll through this and talk about this SmackDown. But the reason why I compare that is because, like you mentioned, it's not a banger. Sometimes episodes of podcasts aren't bangers, and you got to just roll through it.
Hey,
and that's kind of...
We make the show better.
Yeah, we do. We're definitely going to provide a little bit of a different perspective to this episode of SmackDown because, there were some good things that happened. It wasn't just completely a dud, I guess, so to speak. It opened with Pat McAfee. You really can't ask for anything better as far as we go, being, huge Pat fans. I know typically they open with the Bloodline and every now and then maybe open with the Women's Champion, whenever it was formerly Charlotte. But now they're opening with Pat McAfee, and I guess we can go and just roll in, talk about that. Michael Cole is actually the one who welcomes him. He comes out and he does what you would expect. The reason why he wasn't out or available last week, storyline-wise, is because of the attack that Happy Corbin put on him after Money in the Bank in Las Vegas. Was it Money in the Bank in Las Vegas? I believe it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he went to that UFC event with Triple H and Stephanie afterwards. But anyways, he talks about why he wasn't here. His neck wasn't, fractured or anything like that. It was just merely bruised. So luckily he got away with, no injuries or anything like that. But, it just talks about Corbin and how he knows him, or he's known him way longer than any of us. And this is something that we've mentioned. Before Pat McAfee was ever involved in the WWE, I was a huge Pat McAfee show fan. I listened to the Pat McAfee show. You know this. I've been listening to it since about 2017, I believe it was. And he always referenced this because Corbin was already in WWE and he was just talking. Yeah, I mean, Baron Corbin, whenever he was known as like the Lone Wolf and all that stuff, and NXT, and then eventually came up to SmackDown Live before it was called SmackDown, which is just a whole nother conversation. Well, I mean, it was called SmackDown first, went to SmackDown Live. They eventually went back, but I was huge on, hey, stop calling it SmackDown Live. I was very much like, you know how I am with the blue ropes? Mm-hmm. During the SmackDown Live era, I was very much an advocate for chopping off that live portion, just getting back to SmackDown. So thankfully they did that whenever they went back to Fox. That was the I guess the moment in time where it officially went from SmackDown Live to SmackDown. But that's a whole nother story. Back to Baron Corbin. Him and Pat McAfee, Pat has always referenced their connection and how they were roommates and, they played for the Colts together. And Baron Corbin went on Pat McAfee's show years and years ago. So we know their relationship and how they're actually friends in real life. But that's what makes these programs so good. That's what makes Drew McIntyre and Sheamus such a good fight. That's what makes Sheamus and Cesaro, whenever they would have programs, such a good fight. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, Bayley and Sasha Banks. Friends work well together. And I feel like we're actually going to get a chance to see that with Pat McAfee because he's had matches in the past, and every single match that he has is better than the one before it. So now that he's going to work with somebody who he's not only comfortable with as a person, has history with, he mentioned they were roommates their rookie year with the Indianapolis Colts, but he's also probably working with him a lot more than what he worked with Theory, leading up to their match at WrestleMania, working with him more than he was working with Adam Cole leading up to their program that they had. So I do think that this is going to be his best match at SummerSlam. I'm really excited for it. But just this program that he was, that he was talking about, or I guess the promo, I should say, it was damn good stuff. He got the crowd involved. He referenced TV 14, which huge news right there that WWE, for sure Raw on the USA Network, is going back to TV 14. I mean, this is massive. Like, I can't express enough how big this is because the overall product is going to be better. And it's nothing about the kids. It's nothing against the kids. I was a kid watching TV 14 wrestling, and there's a reason why the fans from our era back then are so passionate because the wrestling was so good. And I do think that the writing staff has a lot more of a leash. They have a lot more leeway, I guess I should say, whenever it comes to writing for TV 14 rather than PG 13. So, I mean, it's good stuff in my opinion. I'm really excited for this. I'm sure there are people who feel opposite, who are like, no. I mean, I have kids who watch this, so I would, prefer there to not be TV 14. But I'm sorry. Have your kids go watch Coco Melon if that's how you feel, honestly, because we're trying to watch wrestling here, professional wrestling, and TV 14 is overall a better product. So that's something that I hope SmackDown follows and can go to TV 14 as well. But what do you think about that, just knowing that it's basically going to be a lot more of an edgy product?
Well, I'm definitely not mad at it. I mean, just because, like you were saying, it brings like so much more content that you can actually draw crowds in with, So, I mean, I guarantee it's going to pop, So I'm happy for it. I do want to say that I am happy that freaking Pat McAfee addressed Corey Graves.
Yeah.
Putting a little damper on the show last week. I don't know. That was pretty high on my book just from, hearing it and stuff. But yeah,
he
man.
apologized, to the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it definitely gives like a little bit of excitement to like the whole like up and coming, for everybody else that's, in the program right now. So yeah, it'll be exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting because it just lets you know that like what can you expect going forward. Like what kind of programs are we going to see? Like what kind of storylines are we going to see? Like we don't have to go on to the like back to where divas are having like the bra and panties matches or anything like that. But I'm sure that there is going to be a little bit of like a little bit more of like a, I don't know.
Oh yeah, Becky Lynch. She's definitely going to take advantage of this.
Yeah, Becky is Carmella. Are you kidding me?
Oh,
Carmella is going to, without a doubt, be taking advantage of this type of stuff. I mean, you're going to want to, show off your goods if you're.
There might be a chance of one of those brown pan matches.
Yeah, eventually, who knows? It might make its return. Obviously, if you played WWE SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain, one of my favorite video games back on PS2, that was a very commonly used match. That match was actually on the game for people to use. So that's just crazy how far times have actually come. But anyways, Baron Corbin does eventually, getting back to the segment on the show, Baron Corbin does eventually interrupt Pat, and he basically just discredits Pat as a fighter. He says, you are somebody who just runs your mouth all the time. you are somebody who used to punt footballs. Like, I was actually an offensive lineman. I played football. I'm an actual fighter as somebody who has a boxing background and somebody who's been a full-time wrestler for the better part of like 7 or 8 years now. So he does have points. You know, he discredits Pat by saying, hey, like, I get it. You know, you're a moneymaker. You're an absolute draw whenever it comes to like box office. But you don't want to step in those ropes with me because I will humiliate you. And that's pretty much the point that Baron Corbin was trying to make. And that's why I'm looking forward to this, because it does get interesting. But he just basically said, hey, I'm looking forward to SummerSlam whenever I kick your ass. You know, it's kind of just a little bit of like promotion, getting people pumped up. 2 weeks from today, when we're recording this, is whenever SummerSlam. But Pat McAfee does introduce Liv Morgan after this, which leads us into our next segment. Liv Morgan versus Natalia in a championship contenders match. Liv does win with an oblivion after rattling Natalia by making her collide headfirst into the turnbuckle. Boring match. I will say I'm a fan of both of these women respectively. Like, individually, I'm a big Natty fan. Got a picture with her. Eventually switched over to being a huge Liv Morgan fan, as you and a lot of the listeners know. But man, I gotta call a spade a spade. This match was an absolute snooze fest. I could definitely have put down a couple pizza Lunchables during this one for sure. Kayla Braxton taking a shot at Liv Morgan after the match was actually the most interesting thing, because you got to see a little bit of a dig there. She was like, hey, this match wasn't as dominant as your previous one. What's the deal? You're, letting Natalia hang on close. What do you think's going to happen at SummerSlam whenever you go face to face with Ronda Rousey, where Liv Morgan points out, I know I'm the underdog in my own, championship match. So what do you think about this segment as a whole?
Well, as a whole, man, I was not impressed. I mean, I'm sorry, Liv. I love you and everything, but yeah, this wasn't it for me. It just kind of seemed like it was like a practice match, like they were still trying to get like the moves together, and it just didn't seem smooth, So yeah, this one was a thumbs down for me. I wasn't too happy, but I mean, I'm kind of happy that she kind of, she still backs herself with the words that she, how Kayla Braxton kind of took a shot and stuff, but she's still trying to like show us that she's still trying to be this champion that we want her to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not mad at it at all, but I think just the in-ring performance needs to get tweaked just a little bit better for me to like at least believe that she's the champion.
It just needs to look a little bit more Rey Mysterio and a little bit less Dominic Mysterio. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you have to be a Hall of Famer, the best luchador of all time. Mm-hmm. Just don't look so green like Dominic does on a weekly basis. And I mean, Dominic isn't going anywhere near the championship. That's the thing about Liv, is she's the women's champion. Mm-hmm. So the expectations are a lot higher than Dominic Mysterio. So she has to be a little bit more crisp. Without a doubt, that's just, objectively something that she has to improve on. Just part of me thinks that this championship reign isn't going to be long, man. I don't know why. It's just, I feel like there are a huge portion of the fans that are behind her, but there's only so much you can do. And like, it almost takes me back. I know that you might not remember this time, but Randy Orton, whenever he first won the World Heavyweight Championship at like 23 years old, from Chris Benoit, he took the championship from him. People thought, okay, the fans are getting behind this dude. He's young. I mean, it's for different reasons why he lost that championship so short. He only had it for like a month, and then he lost it to Triple H. It's kind of the same thing, and that was a summer program, I believe. And so this is a summer program. I feel like it just has a little bit of that stench where I think that they gave Liv a chance. See, with Randy Orton, he just wasn't mature enough. He was, being a knucklehead, to say the least. Liv Morgan, it's just, I don't know if she's ready, you know, and that's the thing, is if she's not ready now, like, I know she's still young, but she's been in this business for a while. It's like, is she ever going to be that top notch? Is she ever going to be that high level wrestler where that she's a respectable champion and she doesn't look so vulnerable? Whereas somebody who, like Ronda Rousey, you're like, how in the hell is Liv going to win? That's the way. That's how I'm looking at it, because just squaring up in the ring, both of them fresh, not coming off of a match where we're in a submission match with Natalia, pretty much fresh as hell. Liv Morgan's not beating Ronda Rousey, and I'm a Liv Morgan fan, and I can just come out and say she's not going to beat Ronda Rousey like that. But if she does, somehow they have to book it correctly, because it has to look believable, and Liv has to use that as a springboard. Like, she can't go out and beat Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam, one of the big 4 pay-per-views of the year, and then have a stinker versus Natalia on SmackDown. You know, like, she has to be more consistent with her performances because we've seen her do it. She's shown flashes that she can put on a hell of a match. But there's also just been times where it's like, come on, Liv, you know, you gotta pick it up a little bit. But it's just one of the things, you know, looking at it from an objective point of view, putting the bias aside. I'm loving her as champion, but I will be honest, the honeymoon phase is over for me. Like, I'm over the just pure excitement. Like, screw it, I don't care what happens. Like, eventually you have to care what happens and what the actual championship reign looks like. So I am excited to see how things move forward with Liv Morgan's championship reign and, you know, ultimately what happens at SummerSlam. But moving on here, Austin Theory and Heyman have a little bit of a backstage interaction. Sarah, she's interviewing Austin Theory, and of course Paul Heyman walks up, and I like when he does this, like whenever somebody is there literally doing the job that they're getting paid to do, and he just walks up and kind of just says, get out of the way, you know, let me take the interview from here, pretty much. And that's exactly what he does. He tries to pitch to Theory the box office opportunity that would be in front of him if he doesn't cash in at SummerSlam. Like, if he just holds on to the briefcase, doesn't do that, and actually builds up a program with Roman Reigns, the money and, you know, the stage and the program that could set up, it could ultimately be the biggest moment of his career. And, you know, Theory basically just doubles down by saying that he will, in fact, cash in at SummerSlam on either Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar. And maybe whenever he does, he'll hire Paul Heyman as his special counsel. That was weird. Him saying that and walking away, it felt a little bit more like usually, you know, those backstage interviews, I don't always comment on those. I don't always put them in the notes. But this felt like something like my brain, my gut, something was telling me, remember this, write it down. Like, because this is something that's going to come back. Austin Theory is way too young, way too talented to not have multiple main event programs in the future. And that's something that Paul Heyman, Paul Heyman's going to outlast Roman Reigns, as crazy as that is to say here in WWE. Paul Heyman's going to be the manager of somebody or the advocate for somebody for years and years to come. I truly believe that. Roman Reigns is on the, you know, he's on the back nine. You know, Roman Reigns has definitely got less days ahead of him than behind him, clearly. But, I mean, I just personally feel like Paul Heyman and Austin Theory is a pairing that not only makes sense from like a business standpoint, even though Austin Theory really doesn't need a mouthpiece. He's pretty damn good on the mic for how young he is, I will say. But I just feel like there's something happened, like something came over me whenever I watched this, when I was watching the segment, and it told me, don't just, you know, push this to the side, because it does. It's going to come into play. I don't know when, but I truly believe that down the road, this is going to come into effect.
Well, I mean, the one thing I could say about this is the way, like, Austin Theory was like, huh, and, like, walking away. I don't know, bro. Like, that was something that just kind of, like, caught my ear, you know. I wouldn't say, like, I took it as far as you did. But, I mean, maybe there's something there, you know, something that I'm not picking up on, and maybe there's something, I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely kind of want to say I'm on the line with you on that, but then again, I think Austin Theory is pretty good by himself.
I'm interested, to say the least. This, I was not high on Theory winning the Money in the Bank briefcase whenever it happened.
Oh, no.
But as time is going on, I'm realizing that it was the right decision. Just because, all right, look, you put it on Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins can go cash in. He's done that before. As cool as it would have been, and I predicted it to happen, and I was flat out wrong. I said Seth Rollins is going to cash in at SummerSlam against Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. History is going to repeat itself. I will admit, I was way off on that. But it's fine, because the decision that they made, excuse me, was pretty interesting, just strictly because the prospect of Austin Theory, like the Money in the Bank briefcase, as Matt mentioned several times, is tailor-made for a heel. But you can kind of float that line, because throughout the show, like, I was curious, is Austin Theory turning babyface? Just because of this, like talking about, because Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, I feel like that's kind of a little bit of like a heel on heel right there. Like, it just something about it, because Brock Lesnar isn't a babyface. I know it was Cowboy Brock, but I mean, I showed you a video before we recorded this. Brock Lesnar is not a babyface. I don't care like what he's doing, but anyways, and even if he is, you know, Austin Theory just, it doesn't really matter for him, because he's basically said, I don't care who wins, I'm cashing in on them. But even at the end of the show, whenever he was like going face to face with Sami Zayn, and I know we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, we'll get to that segment, and the Usos come out and all that stuff. just in the, I guess, in the sense of Austin Theory being a possible babyface turn, like, why would he be running from the Usos and Sami Zayn and all that stuff if he was a full-on heel? So that's just what's kind of weird. That's what kind of does, muddy up the waters with the Money in the Bank briefcase, because you don't really know, because, yeah, a heel's a champion. So technically, by default, Austin Theory going at him does make him a little bit of a babyface, but then whenever he runs back to MadCap, he runs into a true babyface, and then he gets thrown into the side of the ring or whatever, and then I know we're going to cover this segment a little bit later, but pretty much what I'm saying is, like, it's weird. Like, there's in that one segment, I was like, is he a babyface? Oh, no, he's a heel, clearly. I mean, the crowd's cheering whenever MadCap beats his ass, so clearly he's a heel. But it's just so confusing, and this segment definitely, I guess, every now and then you kind of just look back and you look at whether it's a backstage interview or like a segment or a match that kind of gets you interested in a program, and this is the one that did it for me. Like, this is the one that got me intrigued on what's going to happen with Austin Theory, specifically at SummerSlam.
Well, I mean, I don't know, man. I guess you can possibly say that, like, there's a bayface turn, because the only thing that I'm picking up on is that he didn't say, like, any of, like, the disrespectful stuff that he usually does to, like, fans and stuff. So,
and is he dropping the selfie thing? That's another thing, because I haven't seen that phone since he inevitably won the briefcase and he took a million selfies. That phone did not make an appearance tonight.
I know on Raw he was taking pictures whenever he was, like, on that little.
And I could be wrong on his entrance. He might have came out with his phone during his entrance, but I know backstage he didn't.
Yeah, for this one.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, that's one thing that I just, like, you just, like, talking about that, like, I was like, one thing he didn't say was, like, shut up, like that normal thing whenever he's, like, talking to the fans and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, he did have heel tendencies in the match with MadCap, like whenever they started and they kind of locked up, and then he got off and said, I wasn't ready, like, I was not ready, and they kind of kept going. I thought that was funny because he was clearly ready. Yeah. Like, he was wiping off his hands, he was putting his hands up and all that stuff, and, like, locked up with him, and then he just randomly said, hey, I wasn't ready to go. That was just kind of funny, but we'll get to that main event a little bit later. Moving on here in order of the show, New Day have a little bit of like a Viking Raiders parody, which was kind of funny. Came out there mocking them. Did you see the way that fake beard was pulling on Xavier Woods' ears?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I could not do that.
Did you see the Kofi's freaking mustache falling off?
Mm-mm.
No, bro. Yeah, he had to put it back on.
Putting it back on there. Oh, that's funny. But, basically all this was like a long-winded way to call the Viking Raiders ugly. They did the UGLY stuff, and then they eventually come out, have a little bit of like a heel promo saying they're going to go out there and kick their ass. They start walking to the ring, and then they're met by Jinder and Shanky, which I thought was kind of weird. Another heel babyface kind of floating in the middle, because I've always, looked at Jinder Mahal and Shanky, except for here lately, as like a full-on heel. Same thing kind of with the Viking Raiders, although they've been babyfaces in the past as well. So I just feel like there's kind of that, like, what are you? Like, are you a heel? Are you a babyface? There's a lot of that going on right now. And maybe it's just me. People listening to this could be like, dude, you're smoking crack. It's very obvious who's what. But I don't know what it is. Maybe I just put too much thought into it because I see people interact with certain people, and just whenever Jinder and Shanky came out and they stood in the way of the New Day from the Viking Raiders, like, did I miss something? Like, why did they do that? Why did they come out? Is there a match that I maybe missed in the past where something happened? I just thought it was weird. Like, why did Jinder and Shanky come out to protect the New Day whenever, they've been having tag team matches? Shanky and the New Day. Jinder, Shanky versus the New Day. And I don't know. Maybe it was just something that, again, I'm putting too much thought into, but I just really wasn't sure why they came out there.
Well, the only thing I can get is, like how Shanky has been doing his little dancing thing.
Yeah, he joins them for a quick one after this one as well.
And he's been doing his little, I don't know, with the New Day and stuff like that. So, I don't know if, like, I thought Jinder Mahal was about to dance last night.
I did too.
I don't know. At the very beginning, it looked like he was already starting, like, to groove his body in a way, and then he just stopped. Completely went, okay, let's get serious.
They're going to make the crowd want it.
Bro, yeah, so I don't know. I was kind of like on the edge right there, so that's the only reason I can see, like, they're, like, being in this and stuff like that. And, of course, New Day has been freaking getting squashed, I guess you could say, by the Viking Raiders. So, having a little bit of protection, not mad at it, I guess.
Yeah. Good WGFW podcast with Kanye Twitty. He actually, because they're their eye pain stuff. He called them My Chemical Romance Viking Raiders or something. It was hilarious. It was a hilarious comment, I will say. So shout out to Kanye Twitty. That WTFW podcast this week, the episode with Casual Wrestling Fan and him going at it. That was an interesting and very entertaining episode. Did you get to listen to that?
I didn't listen to that.
It is. It's pretty funny, man. Kanye Twitty does not hold back, but dude, Casual Wrestling Fan. He lets him have it, I will say, and it was one of those programs that's up there with I guess it's up there with the Theory cashing in my opinion. Like,
okay, yeah,
Mr. Casual Wrestling Fan and Kanye Twitty, they definitely have a feud going on that's likely leading to a SummerSlam match.
Dang, man, that's crazy. I would not expect that. I kind of figured they'd be like more of like a same head type thing, but.
Oh yeah, and just so you know,
like you said, it got to bump heads.
You may have to be joining Kanye Twitty's faction with me by default.
What is happening?
Just, it is what it is. Go look at the Discord chat, bud. Some good stuff going on this week.
But man, that is crazy.
Yeah, so by default, the Blue Brand Brawlers might be having to go join Waste Management, controlling all the trash, taking all the trash out. Yeah, so anyways, moving on here, we get an intense backstage interview with Ludwig Kaiser and Gunther. They say that losing is unacceptable. Well, at least Gunther does. He says losing is unacceptable and it will not be tolerated. And in fact, he tells Ludwig to, unzip and pull down his little, long sleeve that he has on and gives him a couple more chops. You could hear him all the way here in Texas from Orlando. So, yeah, it was definitely a pretty good, sign of authority from Gunther as far as, hey, yeah, people were wondering why I did this last week. Well, guess what? I'm doing it a whole week later, and you didn't even lose tonight. You're still getting chops from that loss. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, it'll make Ludwig's matches going forward more interesting because, like, you're wondering, okay, if he doesn't win, what's going to happen with Gunther? And if he does win, cool, because, I feel like Ludwig's pretty damn good in the ring. So, either way, a pretty good backstage interview. There was a lot of backstage stuff that happened on this episode, and I feel like this was definitely up there with some of the best. But what'd you think about those chops?
Well, man, just by the reaction of Kayla Braxton, bro, that totally tells you like how those chops are, I guess you could say, because she was in total shock, no words or nothing like that. And for her to be like right there, yeah, I guarantee that thing was not nice. But then again, bro, I would hate to be humiliated, like that on freaking TV every freaking time for, a match that you denied, type stuff, Yeah. I'm just trying to back you up, I guess you could say.
The public humiliation angle is always weird. It's always one of the things where I'm like, how do you pitch that to them? Like, say, hey, on TV, you're basically going to look like, a little, what, So it's kind of... But hey, if you're getting paid the big bucks, you'll do whatever, pretty much. I mean, Toni Storm took a pie to the face. That was inevitably or ultimately her the last straw, I guess you could say. But yeah, and there's a lot of other things that have happened in the past where it's like, just pure embarrassment. They poured dog chili on Roman Reigns once.
That is gross, bro.
Or like dog food. I think it might have been. I don't know. It might have just been chili. I don't really know what it was, but because dog chili sounded weird as I said it. But
I was about to say I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I mean it looked like some ranch style beans, or something like that, just getting poured all over him. But anyways, moving on here, the match that we were supposed to get last week, it's advertised for this week. Lacey Evans versus Aaliyah. Wait. Were Lacey Evans and Aaliyah supposed to fight last week, or was that supposed to be like a tag match or something?
I believe it was supposed to be a tag team.
Yeah, I believe it was too. Actually, I can go back to my SmackDown notes from last week really quickly. I'll pull it up. 1 second. Yeah, it was Aaliyah and Lacey versus Shayna and Shotzi, and it doesn't happen because of Lacey Evans comes out, she goes back, she comes out, she goes back. That was so freaking annoying last week. And this week she kind of does something similar, not nearly to that extent, but she basically demands that her music be stopped and started over because the crowd wasn't reacting properly. And, she gets very welcome you suck chants as she's, trying to bury the crowd, eventually tells them to go to hell, and she leaves the ring very quick, full on. Lacey Evans is back to being a full blown heel, because, whenever those video packages were playing and she was giving us her sob story, that had babyface written all over it. Somebody said online that they saw that she was booked as a babyface But it's clear now what she is. Going back to SmackDown, she is going to be one of the more consistent heels, and I feel like that's where she works best. Eventually, we will get this Aaliyah versus Lacey Evans match, but I don't know when. I mean, it's not something that I'm just like dying to see, but at the very least, Aaliyah has walked to the ring 2 weeks in a row to have a match, and she hasn't gotten to, you know? So let's give her a match next week against, I don't know, maybe Shotzi or something.
Yeah, I mean, they had their little backstage things whenever they were like locking each other in the locker room and everything, so I can kind of see that. But this Lacey Evans thing is, man, I feel for her. I mean, I think she's thriving on the hate now. You know, she's kind of feeling like a little bit more comfortable in her role and everything.
I mean, she takes massive shots at the crowd, dude.
Bro, but
not only that, she's like, yeah, if you guys had to do with anything that I had to deal with, y'all basically curl up into a ball and just start crying. Just like she's not just saying that they're ugly. You know, she's basically, you know, calling that she's taking shots at like their character and stuff like that. So Lacey Evans definitely
I think she's doing better in this.
Oh yeah,
in this
she plays
position.
this role
But
so well.
The only thing that I took like negative from this is that I believe the fans should have at least like gave her, you know, kind of put it all off, you know, because she apologized and she said that the American hero, and they still booed her.
It was
bro.
so funny when Pat said that at the end. He was like, "This is actually one of the first times I've ever seen somebody say that they've served for our country and then immediately get flooded with 'You suck' chants."
Bro, like
that was hilarious.
You know, I mean, I understand like maybe we're on TV, let's go with like the script part of it, but I believe like, okay, all seriousness, maybe at least half of the crowd, a third of the crowd, give her a round of applause. But I don't know. I think they just freaking beeped on her, I guess you could say, you know. So yeah, that was kind of like tough to watch. I guess you could say, you know.
Oh, for sure. And that, like, just adding, you know, talking about that Pat McAfee comment that he made. He makes another one in the next segment that I'm going to talk about, but it's almost like The Office. You know, you have to pay real close attention. Play real close attention when you watch The Office, because there's so many subtle things that you can miss. You know, you could very easily miss like a look to camera. You know, like somebody's body language, things that, you know, if you're not watching the TV, you're gonna miss it. You know, it's kind of like with Pat McAfee. If you think that you can just go through a match and not listen to the commentary and just like not pay attention, you're gonna miss something. You know, that's something that you don't want to, and that alone adds value to people stay tuned during matches that you might not stay tuned for, you know, previously or something like that. It maybe just gives you that incentive to actually, you know, watch the entire show. And I love that type of stuff because he has another one in the next match, which is Drew McIntyre versus Ridge. Supposed to be Sheamus, but it ends up being Ridge Holland. Kind of similar to what they did last week, just switch the other brawling brute, I guess you can say. It's funny because just surrounding the ring and in the ring, you had Drew McIntyre, Ridge Holland, Butch, and Sheamus. And Pat said, "Oh my gosh, there's so many accents going on right now," just because all of them out there, like with Drew's accent, Sheamus, is everybody a different one. And I actually thought about it. I was like, that is such a hilarious thing to say. Like, it's just beautiful. I love that stuff. Chef's kiss. I love that. But anyways, Drew McIntyre hits a white noise, which is Sheamus's move, followed by a Claymore to put Ridge away. And eventually we are going to get Drew versus Sheamus. But as far as him just walking all over Ridge, what'd you think about this match?
Well, basically from the beginning, like once it was announced, we knew how this match was going to go. You know, the only like thing that I was thinking about was Ridge's performance. You know, hopefully he doesn't hurt another big name or anything like that. So that was my only negative that I was thinking especially whenever he like, I don't know what he did, like the little power bomb or whatever.
Yeah.
He held his neck like good this time, I guess you could say, to where he wouldn't land on it. You know, I kind of noticed that, but. Yeah, man, I was kind of shaking my boots right there, I guess you could say, whenever that happened.
Yeah, and that reference that you just made gives us a good opportunity to give a shout-out to Big E, who received the news that he is going to make a full recovery and get to come back and wrestle again, which was in question, believe it or not. People really weren't 100% sure, and it is that simple. The A&E documentaries that we've been watching, we finished The Undertaker one, me and my roommate. It 2 hours long, 100% worth it, though. Undertaker talks about it. He's like, I was always 2 inches away from my career / my life being over. Like, he just talks about, and they even break down all the different injuries he's had. Like, they literally put his body up and they just show like a graphic of the Undertaker standing there, and they highlight on his body every surgery and every like procedure he's had done. Every time he says, thousands and thousands of stitches that he isn't even going to count. More stitches than he can count. And that's not even counting like the surgery. He had a hip replacement. You know, he's had so many things done. Literally, like, I forgot what the actual thing happened, but both of his eyes, like something happened to both of his eyes. And that's on me for not knowing the actual medical term. But hey, little shout out. If you haven't watched the things on A&E, the little documentaries that they've been dropping once a week, I believe it is, every Sunday at 7 o'clock Central Time, so 8 o'clock if you're Eastern Time Zone. They're badass. I think Goldberg might be coming up this week, and I know a lot of you might not be Goldberg fans, but guess what? You can go take a freaking hike. Love Goldberg, and I'm definitely going to be watching his documentary as well. But yeah, he just talks about how you're always 2 inches away from, you know, a completely different life in this business, and Big E kind of saw that, and the fact that he's going to make a full return, full comeback, that's going to be a pretty big ending to this whole, you know, saga with Ridge and, you know, Big E's ending and, you know, pun intended with the whole big ending, but hopefully he has a new move. We'll talk about that whenever he comes back. But anyways, we can go ahead and move on to this next match. MadCap versus Theory. Heyman does approach MadCap and pitches the word for word exact same thing almost. Not the exact same thing, but he says, hey, I'm responsible for your biggest break in your career, and I know that you know that I know that you know. And, you know, it's basically the same thing, but a little bit different. He has to tweak it because he isn't the Money in the Bank briefcase holder. He's basically, you know, just telling MadCap to beat the hell out of Austin Theory. And MadCap says, man, you really are worried about if somebody's going to cash in at SummerSlam, aren't you? Maybe putting a little bit of fear into the special counsel for the tribal chief. But I'll let you take this one away. What do you think about this match between MadCap and Theory?
Well, this one basically right here was my match of the night.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I can't say there was like any or actually, let me scratch that because there was a negative to that.
There
because
was.
I did want this to end in a 1, 2, 3.
Just a true finish.
Yeah. I didn't like the DQ, you know, getting hit by the briefcase and everything like that. But other than that, these men, they went at it. I mean, young dudes, I guess you could say.
Again,
you know?
very clear heel thing to do is hit with the briefcase. So it's another sign that, hey, not a babyface turn yet, but yeah, for sure. Continue.
Gotcha. But yeah, I mean, I just felt like they put on a good performance, you know, and I wasn't mad at it, you know. So, I mean, I like where MadCap is in like the position, you know, feuding with Theory because it keeps him relevant, you know, kind of keeps him in this like Money in the Bank thing. And then, of course, Paul Heyman's trying to like convince him to do stuff. So you never know, man. I guess there's a lot of ways to interact yourself with the bloodline, you know, and especially in this little story.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, you know, obviously after the match ends with the disqualification, Sami Zayn comes out and he basically calls Austin Theory, calls him out for disrespecting the bloodline. Basically just tells him to apologize right now. And he does not, but the Usos come out right behind him. And, well, first off, Austin Theory is like, what are you going to do, huh? With one arm, what are you going to do if I don't apologize? And all of a sudden, the Usos music hit. And some other Usos come out, not just Sami Zayn. I know Sami Zayn's an Us out there going by himself, but a couple other Usos come out to have his back. Obviously, one of them has a match next on the main event. We'll get to that. But the Usos come out and they make MadCap run back to the ring where he's met by, or Theory. They make Theory run back to the ring where he's met by MadCap. Sorry, got a little bit ahead of myself there. But yeah, throws him into the post. I forgot what else he does. Maybe throws him over the turnbuckle or something like that. Or no, over the barricade. Yeah, I know he throws him like head first into that.
Yeah, that was a little bit
into that
different
ring post
from the Bobby Lashley one, so I couldn't really say. It was like more of like a head-on direct type thing. Yeah,
I remember he threw him into the ring post. I might have been taking notes and missed what he did next. But really quickly, we're gonna do an episode next week on the SmackDown review where we're gonna cover SmackDown. But this is a little bit of a plug, so if you're listening this week, you definitely want to tune in next week. Or if you're listening this week, definitely tune in next week. John is actually just hearing about this for the first time. But what we're going to do is we're going to go back and forth drafting. We're each going to have 5. So it's going to be a little bit of a form of a top 5, but not necessarily. And it's basically going to be like buying the stock into someone. And the reason why I say that is because Austin Theory, MadCap Moss, 2 people who I expect to have a very big 2023. Like the arrow 100% pointing up.
Oh, okay.
These dudes are about to have a push, in my personal opinion. So what me and you are going to do is we're going to go back and forth, and we're going to pick who we're going to buy the stock into. It can be a younger guy, could be an older guy. It doesn't really matter. But basically, we're going to go tit for tat and just, I'll pick someone, you pick someone. Once we pick that person, they are no longer available. And we'll see who has, the more impressive, just top 5 as far as, stock up, as I guess what we can call it. But a little bit of a plug there. You definitely are going to want to tune into that because I do expect MadCap in theory to be amongst the names that we'll be talking about.
Okay, on this, is it going to be just men's or
all of them,
okay,
women as well?
Okay.
And and we're gonna throw them all into the same pool.
Okay,
because I feel like there's some women who are just as like look at Bianca Belair for crying out loud. Like there's women who have a freaking high ceiling. But anyways, just a little bit of a plug there. Moving on, they do plug for next week. Speaking of it. Maximum Male Models Beachwear Collection with Maxine Dupree. So a woman is being added to the mix. And I will say, me and you crapped all over this last week, and I'm still not with it because, we'll see. I will say, if I was, sitting there with my, arms crossed, looking away from the TV, hearing that Maxine Dupree there maybe make me go like that a little bit. Look, just because they're taking a little bit of a turn, my arms are still crossed. I'm still not with it, but I will say I was a little bit caught off guard by the support that Max Dupree and the Maximum Male Models got from like people on the mailbag. WTFW, Casual Wrestling Fan, and Kanye Twitty both put that in their fire category. Maximum Male Models, and I was shocked. And other people calling in as well. Even Matt, I believe, he says that he was for it, and I was just like, didn't expect it. Honestly, I did not expect them to be behind it. But I guess here's the beautiful thing about the way I look at different opinions. Whenever somebody presents me with different information, I don't be stubborn and stand on my hill and say no, this is stupid. I'm not going to even give this a chance. I'll take the information, take into consideration, and then I'll figure out what my opinion is on it still. And I'm still not for this, but at least I can see from their perspective why they might be enjoying it. It's just because, number one, it's something different. They're giving the two people who likely were inevitably going to get their walking papers one last shot to do something different, So I guess I understand it from that perspective. I still don't see how this is going to, end up, being tied to wrestling. I don't understand how it's going to lead to programs and all that stuff. And what their ring style would be like. But I truly feel like if Judgment Day as a faction is something that, with all the potential they had, with all the hope, with all like the big names that were added to that group, if that can just be, basically switched up, just called an audible really quickly and then, turn on Edge, Rhea Ripley gets hurt, and basically now it's just, Damian and Finn Balor, it won't take WWE anything to pull the plug on this. So that's what I'm saying. It's tough to get really invested because, like, I do feel like it's going to be a matter of time before this does just flicker out. Like I don't know how it's going to evolve. That's something. Are they just going to come out and continue to do different like collections, like they did the tennis collection? Now they're doing the beachwear collection. Last week we didn't see them, so is it going to be like a every other week type thing? I don't really. I guess I'm just going to let it play out. That's all I could say. I'll let it play out, but just to go on record, I'm still on the side of like, what the hell are you doing? LA Knight, who is Max Dupree, back whenever he was LA Knight, I feel like you could be doing a lot more with him. I just feel like even if it is just a manager role, he's somebody who on the mic and just from like a credibility standpoint, I feel like could go maybe not toe to toe with Paul Heyman, but damn near just as interesting. Like this is somebody who's pretty damn good on the mic. And I don't know. It's hard because I had that preconceived notion on it at the very beginning where I was so against it that it's going to be tough to get me to come off of that. But like I said, I'm not going to just be completely, I guess, stubborn about it. And if something happens where, they come out next week, maybe with Maxine Dupree, and it's a little bit more interesting, maybe I'll, change my opinion on it a little bit. But for now, I'm still like, I was happy that they went 2 weeks in a row without featuring them on SmackDown.
Well, on this, man, I can't really say that I'm at least getting close to like wanting this to continue. But the one thing that I saw on Twitter was all these like,
oh my gosh, yes.
If y'all have Twitter and y'all are following Max Dupree, he posted all the submissions from like people that were just like randomly like putting submissions to like see if they qualified for this. And he had some of like I wouldn't even say brutal comments, but he was definitely like beeping on some of these people, and like I don't even know, like a creative type of thinking, I guess you could say, for this maximum male models thing. But dude, some of those pictures were funny, and I just could not. I can't say that this kind of like brought some type of happiness out of me just to see his reaction to like the submissions, bro.
Yeah.
So I mean, it definitely made me like smile, like reading all these things. There was a good probably like, I don't know, probably like 10 that he reviewed, you know, and just like the comments were funny. So that's the best thing that I could say that I got out of this. I'm not happy not happy for it to be like showed, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I still can't see myself following it. This Maxine Dupree thing, I guess you could say. I mean, bringing some women in is gonna give me the little eyebrow raise, you know. But
What if it's like Elias and Ezekiel? He just comes out like dressed like a girl.
oh my god,
Maxine Dupree, that would be funny. But
that's definitely gonna throw me off right there.
I was actually wrong though. I said 2 weeks in a row without it. Last week they presented the tennis challenge. I thought that was 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I was definitely off there. So it's only 1 week that we haven't seen them out there, but we're going to see them back next week, and I am intrigued just to see what they do.
Well, my eyebrow is raised. Let me just say that. But the funniest thing out of this is just the Twitter. Y'all got to check that out.
Definitely hilarious. But the main event of this show, Jimmy Uso versus Angelo Dawkins, with Sami Zayn on commentary. He pretty much just stays out there for from his interaction with Austin Theory. He just stays out there from that time he went out. And he has a one-on-one match, Jimmy Uso, that is, with Angelo Dawkins. And the match itself, I mean, it is what it is. These two teams, as far as like the Street Profits and Usos, they have chemistry together. So whenever they go one-on-one, Jimmy versus Angelo, you could expect there to be some pretty good points in the match. But I don't feel like anything that happened in the match mattered. They didn't care. They were just basically killing time, putting a match on to get to the ending of the match where Angelo Dawkins pinned Jimmy Uso, but his shoulder was not down. And for some reason, Adam Pearce and everybody backstage was watching, and they can immediately come out and say, hey, they got that wrong. But they couldn't do that at Money in the Bank, you know, like were they not watching whenever that happened at a pay-per-view, you know? So it was kind of weird that I saw, like, if you can see something like that and you know the finish wasn't proper, why would you not just restart the match? You know, why would you not just, all right, go, like y'all are about to fight again until somebody gets a win, you know, go for another 5 minutes. Eventually somebody's going to get a clean pin. But I don't know. I guess just that, like, get better referees. If this has happened this common, like, are you kidding me? Well, hey, I love Charles more than anybody. I love Charles Robinson more than anyone. I will say, I even said to my roommate, ask him, as this match was going on, whenever he got hit and he was laying down there, I was like, man, it's crazy that Charles Robinson is still doing his thing in 2022. So I do agree.
That's one person I know, you know?
But I'm objective right now, right? I want to see the matches get called right, and if it's happening so common, fine him. All right, give him a little suspension or something like that. I'm sure he needs a little vacation anyway. I mean, he's been going at it for so long, but they do announce, it was plugged, the special guest referee, though, for SummerSlam with the Usos and the Street Profits for the Unified Tag Team Championships. JEFF JARRETT Jeff Jarrett. He is going to be the special guest referee. And, I mean, if you're a WCW guy, you definitely know Jeff Jarrett like I am. And just if you watched wrestling way back in the day, you know Jeff Jarrett. I mean, he's just a very common legend, WWE Hall of Famer, and he is the one who started breaking the guitar over people's back, I believe. You know, I'm not 100% sure. It could have been done before him. You know, I'm not a wrestling historian. You definitely are going to want to hit up Memphis Mark or Michael Gross, the gardener, for that type of information. They'll be able to tell you. But as far as I know, I never saw anybody do it quite like Jeff Jarrett. So definitely glad to be seeing him. It's always good to see a familiar face. I do, and especially not in a match. You know, like I feel like had Goldberg not come back for so many main event Universal Championship programs, and he just came back to, you know, spear somebody every now and then, you know, like and do something like that, the fans wouldn't be crapping all over his legacy, you know, because he does have a very impressive legacy, and that's not debatable. You can argue, hey, he was in WCW, right spot at the right time. Hey, it is what it is. You know who else was at the right spot at the right time? Tom Brady. And sometimes it just plays out in your favor. I feel like Goldberg had a hell of a career, and I understand he's not a wrestler right now. He shouldn't be wrestling right now. I'm not banging the table for him to come back and have Universal Championship matches with Brock Lesnar and Bray Wyatt and Dolph Ziggler and Kevin Owens. That was always like, I liked watching it, but I was like, man, you don't want to see somebody be a shell of themselves. So I'm going to look forward to watching this documentary because it is going to be the highlights. It's going to be the glory days of Goldberg whenever I was a 6-year-old kid just absolutely freaking out for what WCW was doing. But pretty much like why I said that is I feel like if he was brought back for these kind of usage, like Jeff Jarrett, just Stone Cold Steve Austin coming back every now and then just to make an appearance, I feel like it would be pretty good. But to be completely honest, I feel like just because it is WWE, Goldberg never stood a shot. Like, it doesn't matter. They're always going to look at him as that attraction at the rival company back whenever WCW had, WWE on the ropes. Eventually WWE won, of course. It was never going to be a full-time WCW is the best company in the world, but there was that time, that 83 weeks where Eric Bischoff and company were doing their thing. But one day we'll touch on that a little bit. And we'll cover a little bit more of the pure WCW Monday Nitro era, because I do know that you're a fan of that as well. Mm-hmm. And that was just a good era of wrestling. But
that was.
I guess with all that being said, that does do it for us here on the SmackDown review. I'm going to give you the mic here, though. Did I miss something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I do want to kind of top off this last match.
Go ahead. What happened?
Well, I just want to say I did tweet out can we get Samantha Irvin a safer seat? She gave me a good like.
That's your second like to receive from Samantha Irvin.
So that's definitely kind of impressed. I'm kind of see if she can listen to one of our shows, get it sent out to some people.
She clearly reads the tweets.
That's true.
All you have to do is say, hey, Samantha Irvin, we give you a shout out in this podcast. Drop the link. And, do that.
Yep.
Definitely do this one where I got her name right. Don't do the previous one where I accidentally threw the W in there. That's on me. But anyways, anything else? Any other thing?
No, but that was it, man. That was kind of like an exciting point. Like, I just tweeted that like right as soon as I seen it, put my phone down, let it chill for about a good 2 hours, I want to say. And then there was I was like, I wonder who it is. And boom. It was her, so yeah, I was kind of happy about that.
This is definitely something that'll make your day for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But that does do it for us here on the SmackDown review. Hope you guys all enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed SmackDown. Like we said, it wasn't necessarily a banger, but it is what it is. They're not always going to be bangers. Maybe next week next week isn't the Go Home show. 2 weeks from last night is the Go Home show, so then you could expect a pretty good episode. Hopefully, I mean, Go Home shows are usually pretty exciting, but anyways, go follow Football Function, subscribe. If you haven't already, go listen to it. I would definitely appreciate it. Definitely some good stuff out there. The Kick Ash podcast as well from Ashley Mann. That's another podcast you should definitely get into. Beyond the Mat, Detroit Kyle was somebody who joined me on Football Function. He makes appearances on the Beyond the Mat podcast. So, just a lot of good content out there. Obviously, all the podcasts that you get here on the WWE podcast, the WTFW, Raw Review, Weekend Review. I do believe there is a vacancy for the NXT host. So if you're an NXT fan, look, how I got into podcasting, how I got into doing this is Matt put out a post, right? Looking for somebody to host an AEW review, looking for somebody to host a SmackDown review, right around the same time. So me and Mimi Burris are kind of in the same class, the same graduating class. We came literally right around the same time. And, I told him, hey, I watch SmackDown every week. I have a microphone because I was trying to launch Football Function at the time, but didn't have the experience, didn't have the knowledge or the flat out talent to do it, So, I told him, hey, I got all this equipment here. I got the software. I have the passion for wrestling, which is what you're looking for. I would like to try. He said, send in an audition tape or whatever. Just basically cover SmackDown tonight. Because it was on a Friday or something like that. I said, cover SmackDown tonight. Send me it and I'll get back to you. I sent him the audition. About 3 days later, he said, hey, the position is yours if you want it. That was one of the better days in my life, I will say, just from a pure hey, I was literally because I listened to the WWE podcast for years before that. I was a 3-year listener and then finally got the opportunity to jump on here and start producing content with Matt. And it's definitely a hell of an opportunity. But if you're an NXT fan, and you want to get into podcasting, I mean, I promise you it's easier than you think as far as getting set up. You just need a computer, number one. I know that might be a little bit of an investment, but, I mean, it's 2022. Computers definitely come in handy. If you don't have one, it wouldn't be a bad investment, especially if you're looking to get into making content. And then microphones, you can get a $40 to $50 one that sounds perfectly fine. Obviously, there's better ones. Prices go up, more and more quality, but you can get you a very good podcasting microphone for very cheap. I mean, $40, $50. It comes with like an arm stand and all the wires and all that good stuff. But yeah, definitely, if you're interested in the NXT review, definitely give Matt a little bit of a hand there, because we like having all these shows covered. If there's a vacancy, it feels like there's a missing leg in the relay, like we need to get that second leg, I guess, solidified. So if you're an NXT fan, definitely get in touch with Matt. But tune in next week for sure. Like I said, we got some damn good stuff coming. We're going to be doing that stock up draft top 5 of who is going to be having a damn good 2023 and beyond. So with all that being said, John, any other plugs, any shout outs, anything before we sign off?
Well, I just want to say, thank you for having me another week and everything like that. And I do appreciate the listeners, tuning in every week to make this, very contentful for us and y'all at the same time, I guess you could say, because gosh dang, these notes are sometimes kind of crazy. But, yeah. I mean, it is kind of hectic whenever we have, like, long days of work and stuff like that. So, yeah, we definitely try to get this pumped out to y'all as quick as possible, just so you can have your weekend fulfilled with wrestling and everything. But, yeah, definitely want to give a shout-out Football Function. Check that out. You want to listen to some football content. Yeah. But other than that, man, happy that it's a good Saturday. We got the day ahead of us, and see what's out there, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and one other thing. 1 year ago today, July 16th, I was at SmackDown for the very first show in front of fans in Houston, Texas. And that was awesome. I mean, there were some celebrities in the section that I was in. Yeah, there was definitely a pretty exciting time, to say the least. First time getting a chance to see Pat McAfee in person. That was just, badass. But yeah, July 16th, 2021, I was in Houston. Some of you might remember that. I had a conversation with Matt that next night, and oh my gosh, I was sick as a dog. Like, I could not breathe out of my nose at all. My ears wouldn't pop from like the plane, like from the flight over there. It was a nightmare, dude. But yeah, with all that being said, guys, have a damn good rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for listening. Tune in next week. Tune into all the other episodes. Call into the mailbag. There's always some damn good content whenever we have multiple people call in. I love the feuds and the programs that are going on. Starting in Discord chat. I'm actually involved in one of them kind of right now. So, yeah, shout out to Kanye Twitty, Waste Management, WTFW Podcast.
Shout out.
Some damn good stuff coming out over there. But, yeah, guys, have a damn good rest of your weekend. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.